what are some of the tours, activities, and experiences that have stuck with you? Hi there, Kelsey Toner here, the founder of Guest Focused Tour Business Coaching, where every day myself and our team of coaches and mentors are helping you build a thriving, profitable tour, activity, or experience business. In this series, we're looking at how to design a tour guests will never forget. We're sharing best practices, tools, and templates for consistently creating unforgettable experiences, as well as, of course, sharing some real-world examples to give you inspiration and to help crystallize some of these concepts. Today, we're exploring a powerful framework that we created for designing unforgettable tours called the Unforgettable Product Pyramid. Let's have a look. So like Maslow's hierarchy of needs, each level of the Unforgettable Product Pyramid builds on the foundation below. And you can't reach higher levels of the pyramid without satisfying the more basic and foundational needs first. And here's the key insight. As you move up this Unforgettable Product Pyramid towards those higher levels, your experiences become more and more memorable. It's as simple as that, full stop. So before we go into each level, why is this framework ultimately useful? Well, you can use it definitely as a bit of a checklist when designing your tour activities and experiences, making sure, have we taken care of some of these foundational elements before reaching for something that's more memorable, more impactful, maybe more transformational? For example, if a guest is too hot or exhausted, or all they're thinking about is just, where can I sit down? My legs are killing me. Then of course they're not gonna be able to engage and have maybe a more deep and meaningful challenge. If they don't feel safe for whatever reason, in the group, well, then we're not going to be able to create that deeper bond with other members, or let alone have a more transformational experience. Now let's take a look at each level and some examples to help clarify. Let's start with the foundation, our physiological needs, the most basic physical needs of your guests. When designing your tour or experience, ask yourself, are there bathrooms on the route? Are there opportunities for guests to relieve themselves? Is there potential shelter for extreme weather conditions? Is there water or food available, or is it included? How might we build breaks and check-ins into your experience? How are guests doing with the physical demands of the tour? Are they properly prepared? Do they have proper clothing? So for many of us, this is tour design 101, right? But be surprised by how many tour and activities get this wrong. I've been on hundreds of tours where some physiological element was overlooked. This could be something as simple as when I was down on a tour of Chichen Itza, down in the Mayan Riviera, and the sun was just absolutely cooking the group, and the guide seemed totally oblivious to this fact. We couldn't focus on anything. The sun was right in our eyes, we were clearly sweating. I remember other walking tours where we had just been standing the whole time, and there wasn't really a thought given to, hey, when are people gonna get the chance to sit down? The bathroom breaks, while we might have them built into the tour, if we're not properly communicating that to guests, or guests don't know when that next bathroom break might be, guess what? I might be focused on nothing else except scanning around. Am I gonna pee in that bush? Am I gonna find a restaurant to go to? Sometimes it's communication about some of these elements as well. The next level of the Unforgettable Product Pyramid is the safety and security. We need to ask ourselves, how are we making our guests feel safe and secure during the experience? Is there any protective equipment that might be needed? Is there some sort of safety training or briefing that's required? Do guests know who to turn to if at any point they feel unsafe or uncomfortable? And have you created a safe group environment free from any kind of physical, sexual, or social abuse? As many of you know, I love riding my bicycle, and I led bike tours for many, many years. It was so important for us at the beginning of a tour to make sure that, one, the bicycle was properly fit, but also walking through and not making any assumptions that these people knew how to operate the equipment that we were ultimately sharing. Did they know how to adjust their helmet? It was an opportunity for a guide to point out, hey, here are some of the potential dangers, challenges, things that we know we're gonna encounter on today's ride. Also, of course, there is scripting this or making sure this is happening on every tour, but the guide and guide training plays a key role here. Are we able to swiftly and tactfully handle negative behaviors that might be coming up? Having a zero tolerance policy that is communicated with everyone else, and trying to set some of those norms and then enforcing them, and having procedures for removing any guests that aren't falling in line or are problematic. As you'll see in a moment, when we move up to more and more memorable experiences, where maybe we're stepping outside of our comfort zone, or we're challenging ourselves in some way, or doing something we may have never done before. This foundational level of feeling safe and secure is so important, and it is a criteria for getting people in a place where they feel comfortable pushing themselves, or they don't feel pressured to do something just because everyone else is doing it. How can we consistently create that environment? The third level of the Unforgettable Product Pyramid is about connection and belonging. This speaks to our guests' need and the human propensity for connection, acceptance, and belonging. A wonderful experience becomes that much more meaningful, becomes that much more memorable when it is shared with others. So these special bonds can of course happen between the guides or the hosts and the members of the group, but I think it's especially important to create this special bond, this shared experience with all members of the group, whether that's a private tour or a public tour or a day tour or a multi-day tour. I have a very memorable experience when I was doing some work down in Panama, and it was with Sandblast Adventures, and they do these small wooden boat tours that are 3 or 4 days to get you from Panama to Colombia, and you go through these small atolls and beautiful Caribbean islands, but you're sleeping on these huts, so on these sandy places where there's no people, and you have to everybody's carrying each other's bags, helping you in and out. We're all sleeping together in this condensed space, and this was a extremely memorable experience because we had to work together to kind of overcome this challenge. Much in the same way, escape rooms, I think, provide a really memorable experience because you have a shared challenge, a puzzle. You have these breakthroughs, these moments, the pressure and struggle. And I think we can highlight that when we are designing a tour, that we're going to go on a journey together. We have a challenge to get through today. Even if you're working for a company where all you have to do is walk through a city, that can be pretty challenging to do. And highlighting that we're going to need to help each other out. We're going to need to be there for each other. There's going to be times when this is going to be a bit of a struggle, but I think we can get through it together. By giving it that framing, we can do a lot of work here to creating these extra levels of bonds. Here are some key questions for getting your tour activity or experience to this level and elevating it. How can your guides or experience hosts quickly create social connections? Do guests feel warmly welcomed upon arrival? Are there icebreakers or creative introductions to help build cohesion quickly? How can we create teamwork and camaraderie? What shared journey or goal unites the group? And how can we acknowledge and celebrate individual contributions? In our coaching program, we have a lot of tour leader training resources where we can help our guides, our experience hosts become that sort of social lubricant, that connector where we're really bringing people together. On multi-day tours, this happens naturally, but there are some important steps that you can take. On those multi-day bike tours, we were regularly setting up small techniques that the guests could do to help each other out. So if a car was coming up from the back, we created a culture where we would say, car back, to alert bikers who are ahead. If there was a pothole or some gravel, we encourage them to give a quick shout out and even point to it as you're going by. We're really giving our guests the tools and techniques to support one another. And finally, at the apex of the Unforgettable Product Pyramid, and quite rare, is the transformational level, when guests experience a deeper and more meaningful change. This occurs when they're deeply moved or challenged by an experience, creating that lasting impact on their behavior, on their beliefs, or potentially even their identity. Let's talk through a couple real-world examples to make it more concrete, and then talk about how you can think about adding this to your tour activity or experience. So on some level, the physical challenges, accomplishing something that maybe you're nervous to do or is outside of your comfort zone, can be really, really memorable and impactful. And this isn't appropriate for all tours, but I do remember when I was a high ropes course facilitator, so I started creating this experience for others. But the first time I climbed up to the top of a telephone pole, some 40 feet up in the air, and leapt off the top and grabbed a trapeze bar, I remember being so nervous to do this. I did not think I'd be able to do it, but ultimately, with the right harness and making sure everything was safe, I felt comfortable to do it. And the fact that I pushed myself and ultimately achieved it was really, really impactful. And I still think about it to this day. But keep in mind, it doesn't have to be this type of physical feat or challenge. I love how Invisible Cities, operating in the UK, is able to transform people's perspectives on homelessness, as many of their guides are actually formerly homeless folks who are sharing their lived experience, who are telling their stories as part of a tour activity and experience. And this can lead to a shift in some of the assumptions we may have had around the people who experience homelessness, who they are, and the reasons that they may have gotten there. One of our guest coaches is Akila McConnell from Unexpected Atlanta, where her Martin Luther King and Black History tours really, through storytelling, help people appreciate what life was like for Martin Luther King, how important the city of Atlanta was to the civil rights movement. So if you're looking to create the space for this kind of individual transformation on your tours, let's ask ourselves, how can we create opportunities for personal growth? Where can guests step outside of their comfort zones? What assumptions might be challenged? Can we create awe or wonder? What controversial topics might we engage with or be explored? And what profound moments could we create consistently? One important caveat as you're thinking about the Unforgettable Product Pyramid is that it's not necessarily appropriate for all tours to reach to that highest transformational level. We can think of the example of a bachelorette experience where maybe the highest level we want to achieve is that great bond and connection between the group and they're just having a great time. There's no need for that more profound transformation. That being said, if you did create a bachelorette experience that did have some of that challenge by choice, that did have some of that transformation, it would be more memorable, but that may not be appropriate. That's ultimately going to be up to you as the tour activity or experience designer. All right, let's take some action. You can, of course, apply this Unforgettable Product Pyramid to your existing tours and activities. You can use it as a little bit of a checklist. Hey, are we advancing as high as we want to? And if you do want to reach for some of those upper levels, you can be inspired by the questions that we shared. But here's another thing I think we should do. Hopefully, as we've been talking through, especially on those higher levels, where there's some experiences, some tours that came to mind, could you share them down below right now before you go anywhere? I think this will be really wonderful for our community to see what are some of the tours, activities, and experiences that have stuck with you. What were some of those tours activities? And I'm betting that there was some kind of transformation in some of those most memorable experiences. Even the ones where you had a special bond with your guide or the group are probably the ones that are standing out in your mind. Leave a comment down below and share specifically a little bit more about why you think it was as memorable as it was. If you're having some challenge reaching those higher levels and gosh, you really want to reach for some type of transformation, but want a little support, by all means, you can book a free strategy call with the link down below at guestfocus.com/book a call. It's a free 45-minute call with one of our coaches, and we'd love to help you get there. Thanks so much for watching this video. You can subscribe it, you can share it, you can like it, but most importantly, stick around for the next video.